Subscribe to our YouTube channel and don't forget to press the bell icon to get all the latest updates. It's not unusual for actor Swara Bhaskar to be in the headlines. I used to think of myself as a massively trolled woman online, but then there came Swara Bhaskar. I don't think there is a single other entity, man or woman, across ideologies who is as viciously trolled as Swara is. But she's got to take it as a compliment. There isn't a day that someone isn't discussing her. She now, of course, has a new series on human trafficking out soon called Flesh, in which she plays a police officer. And there you can see in that image what Swara might look like in that role. But of course, the headlines are not just about that series. To talk about her acting, her headlines, her life, her ideology, and why the world loves to hate independent, opinionated women is Swara herself. Swara, thank you. We've been planning this for a long time. I'm happy we're finally getting to do it.
Yes, thank you for having me, Barkha, and it's both a pleasure and an honor because you're quite the trailblazer yourself. And I don't know if you remember, but you once came to my school as a chief guest to give an address, and all of us were super excited and super impressed. So I've been watching you for like a long time.
I'm as they say, ancient and but I love that. I love having been around so long.
You've been a star forever. That's what it is.
Thank you. Now tell me, human trafficking, right? Serious issue. You play a police officer. What's it about? And beyond the obvious story that there are kids and we've all seen those horrific images. We've seen them in cinema. You see little children holed up at the backs of trucks. And in fact, when I was reporting this pandemic and I saw migrant workers and the children huddled at the back of trucks, it was almost reminiscent of that horrible feeling when human beings are, being shunted from one place to the other like cattle. Tell us a little bit about this series.
I mean, the series is basically a pretty gritty and pretty unflinching look at the world of human trafficking. Of course, I play a cop who's chasing a case in doing which she discovers a human trafficking racket. But really, the show is not just about the cop. It's actually about this world, and I think that's where it's quite different from other things that have come out on this topic. One, of course, it's a series, it's not a film. So there is, just the format allows you to explore the issue in some more detail just because you have the time, and that's the format. I think that Indian content has never actually looked at this issue in this manner. And I personally, for example, yes, you hear of trafficking, and of course, when if you're not a reporter who's well aware of these things, and if you're not actually working on the issue, it's a very fuzzy, unspeakable kind of don't go there kind of an issue for us. I think in doing the show, because the show actually delves into how does trafficking happen, how do these rings operate right from the kidnapping stage. It actually traces a girl's journey and the journey of a group of girls. And what I found actually quite shocking, and I'm sure it's something that the audiences will sort of register as well, is that, of course, it's a global nexus now, but the involvement of the civil society is actually that for me was the most disturbing part of this whole thing, that it's not just some unknown alien traffickers out there. The people who are involved, like, for example, spotters, people who are transporters, people who might be giving their houses for, this kind of thing.
What is the ultimate
from local communities?
What is the ultimate destination for these girls who are being trafficked? Because we've grown up hearing of, beggar cartels. We've grown up hearing of girls pushed by human trafficking into the sex trade. What in your research was the ultimate destination for these children who are trafficked?
So that's really interesting, actually, that you asked that, because I was reading something, and one of the reports I think it's the NHRC actually, says that while India is the hub for trafficking in Asia, only 10% of the people who are trafficked, and as you know, it's children, men and women. Of course, women and children are a higher percentage. 80% of that is related to sexual exploitation. And of the people who are trafficked, only 10% are actually headed internationally. 90% of the trafficking that takes place in India is interstate. So actually, this is something that is happening in very large numbers within our own country. In the show, of course, the story moves from Bombay to Calcutta, and Calcutta has a whole sort of a history of this kind of a trade. But that's what it is in the show. But I didn't, for example, know that 90% of this is basically interstate, and it's just people moving around in India itself. You know,
does it, as a feminist, does it conflict you on the sex trade? Right. I mean, obviously, we live in an age where prostitute is used interchangeably for prostitute. As a feminist, I've always held that as a matter of choice for women. But choice becomes a very loaded word in gender. What seems like free choice is not a free choice. And, there is an entire feminist school. I'm not sure I fully agree with it, but there is a Gloria Steinem, a feminist school that believes that the sex trade is founded on the roots of exploitation and on the stories of human trafficking, like the ones you're describing. Ruchira Gupta, for example, has devoted hours of her life to this. So does it conflict you? Like when your research showed that a lot of these girls are pushed into the sex trade, what does it do to our positions on the sex trade as a matter of choice for women?
I mean, I think the issue with prostitution for me personally is not, the thing is not a moral thing about, the problem is not a moral problem about sex as occupation. I think the problem and the moral ethical problem is about consent and about the fact that unfortunately a very, very large percentage of the people who are in this trade are actually not in it by free choice. And as far as trafficking goes, I'm saying that let's leave aside the sex work debate. The trafficking is actually not even an issue that for me is initially about sex. I mean, it's about exploitation. And again, what we understood was that a lot of the, a majority actually of the people, women, children who found themselves into this had either been cheated into it, they had been sold in desperate situations, or they'd just been kidnapped. So, so none of these things constitute any kind of free choice. And I think that that as far as exploitation is concerned, I think trafficking is pretty clearly something that I wonder that there can be too much debate on really what the intention of that is.
No, there is no other side. There is no other side to trafficking. Yeah,
how we rehabilitate women who are trafficked, whether you send them home, and all that is of course a huge debate. And people who know, I can't claim to be an expert on the field, but I think as far as exploitation and trafficking goes, I think that there is no doubt that this is basically a different kind of modern slavery. Where I did have a bit of an ideological issue is really where I feel like I don't necessarily, so there's a dialogue in the trailer also where the cop says that I really wish that I could just line up all the traffickers, strip them naked and shoot them on Chowpatty. And it's a good dialogue. It's a very dramatic dialogue. I don't know if I would espouse that position personally, publicly. I'm not a fan of this kind of instant justice, especially since we've seen so much of it, and the worst form of it in the form of the Gaurakshak related deaths, the beef lynchings, the love jihad lynchings. I've begun to be very, very wary of when a mob decides that justice must be, administered right now.
So tell me this, do your political beliefs cost you moments in your career?
I mean, for sure, I think we've established that beyond doubt. I went through a long phase where I was denying it and I was like, nahi, koi baat nahi hai. Also, I think that sometimes you feel like a little scared and ashamed, like what if people find out that my career suffers, and then, I'll be seen as I'll be seen as someone who's, a problem or a burden. But then I was like, it's happening anyway. That thing is happening anyway, so what's the point of denying it? I mean, I think definitely that I've lost work because of my political positions and all the trouble I keep finding myself in, sometimes completely unwittingly.
What do people say to you? Like, oh, we really like you, but what's the but?
Yeah, I've had more than one producer, and all of them well-wishers, I do want to say, say that, Swara, are you sure? Like, do you want to, first everyone's question is, do you want to get into politics? Are you getting into politics? And I'm like, I'm not getting into politics. I mean,
but you are ferociously political, and they're two different
I am
things.
political, but I feel like people just assume that if you're political, you're getting into electoral politics.
Sure.
I mean, that's not necessary. So a lot of producers have told me that in the past, especially, that you're developing the image of being a troublemaker, and you have nuisance value. And I'm quoting the exact words.
Who said this? You want to name names?
No, I don't want to name names. Poor things. They were being kind, and they were sounding me out. And some of them actually said that we've fought for you. I've spent the last, yesterday night I was fighting for you with some producers and so on. A lot of people have said we suggested your name, and immediately they said, no, let's go with someone non-political. So I think that definitely that has happened. But I feel like, I just feel like that's it's a path I chose consciously.
And it's never made you feel like, look, acting is my first love, I may be political, but maybe it's time for me to zip up for a while.
But the thing is, Barkha, that even when I don't say anything now, it's just there's so much water under that bridge that I don't need to say anything anymore. It just happens on its own, like what happened with, for example, Ras Bhari, or, I think the funny thing is that in the case of Flesh, they can't seem to find anything to troll me with, because guess what? They love cops and they love instant justice. So,
you have a possible contempt proceeding coming up. A contempt of court proceeding for your opinion on the Supreme Court verdict on Ayodhya. So how are you dealing with it? Are you worried, given what's happened to Prashant Bhushan? You could be next.
We just have to wait and watch. I think that's the only thing to say right now. I'm not in a position to comment on it.
But have you taken legal advice? Have you taken legal advice? Do you need to, or you're not taking it that seriously right now?
No. I'm taking it seriously. I have two shows coming out this year. Don't want to be doing promotions from Tihar.
But more seriously, for the fact that there is actually somebody who's angered enough by what you said to file a petition in the Supreme Court. Is this the moment when you say, you know what, I'm just going to go off Twitter, or if I'm going to remain on Twitter, I'm only going to talk cinema? Does that ever happen to you?
I really do only mostly talk about cinema. Like, if you look at my tweets, I have been flooding them with, Eros related and flesh related content. But I think that, our society has just become so polarized that, and I'm sure this is something you experience as well, that once they've identified you, or once you've been identified with this or that camp, then you're basically just calling. कभी-कभी आपको ऐसे किसी और पे आ रहा है, वो कीचड़ वो आप पे भी आ जाता है.
ना, मुझे तो दोनों साइड से पड़ती है.
Yeah, you are opening up battlefronts everywhere.
I am an equal opportunity offender. No, but really, more seriously, I embrace the idea of being a free thinker. I hate dogma of any kind. Obviously, some views are very, very non-negotiable for me. It's not that I will modify them for anybody else. But I don't like to be put in a box with a ribbon on top. And that's fine. We all have to define our own space. My question to you is, you're looking at a possible contempt of court proceeding in the Supreme Court. That's got to give you some moments of anxiety. Even you.
I think that I don't want to, the thing is that I feel like we're already living in the middle of a pandemic. There's enough cause for anxiety. It's just coming from everywhere. People are just dying. Like, people we've known and we've worked with are no more. There is already enough cause for, panic and anxiety. And I just don't want to add to it by overthinking or just getting ahead of myself. So really, I've decided that until it doesn't really come to a head, I don't want to get into oh my God, what'll happen? We don't know. We don't really know how far it'll go. These kind of people don't realize, but I'm sure the courts, people who are in the courts and would be aware of it, that these kinds of petitions come by the thousands to the Supreme Court. Just because the petition comes doesn't mean it gets admitted. Quite.
Do you regret your tweets though? Do you think you crossed the line?
I don't know if I should answer that, because then I don't know if that'll create a fresh.
I don't usually let my guests go, but on this, because one doesn't really want to see this escalate, we let your silence do the talking. But here's the question for you. You're quite clearly a progressive left of center voice, right? But I don't know how many people know you're actually the daughter of a military man
Yeah.
and a university professor. So you're not quintessentially from that pacifist lefty background, right? So my question for you is a little complex. My question for you is this: do you believe that the left, your ideological comrades, have made a mistake in letting the right appropriate the nationalist space? And I ask you this as a girl who cut her teeth reporting the military and feels very sentimental. That's me. I feel very attached to the idea of
Yeah,
the
I know that.
uniform. Do you believe that that has been a fatal flaw? Because we live in the age of muscular nationalism, and we live in an age where the right wing has been able to own this space.
I think that so it's interesting actually that you say that, because I think that, like you said, that I don't think we choose the labels that are put on us. And I think that that has happened to me as well. You know, the whole time that I was a student in JNU, my classmates and my friends used to keep saying to me that, oh, you're center right. You're center right. Now, it was not radical enough for them in JNU because, and I was, I came in a car, I drove myself, and I, came from privilege, very obviously. I was an English-speaking elite person, and at that time...
Were you never Jhola? You were never Jhola?
No, I was a Jhola, but I was an English-speaking elite Jhola. I mean, of course, we're all
but did you dress like a Jhola, or you dressed like the actor that you are today?
No,
like, did you do the khadi kurta?
This is the sum total of my lessons in Bollywood that Bombay has taught me. I was a full Jhola. I mean, I'm also by soul a bit of a Jhola. So, but I was in JNU. I was always teased about being center right. And then of course when I went to Bombay, everyone was like, "Oh, JNU," and then post 2014, I think everybody is just a leftist who is not a bhakt. So I think I actually don't take these terms seriously. I do feel that looking, and again, not claiming to be an expert, but I think where we perhaps the progressive people or the left or whatever you want to call it, where we made a mistake is, I think, more than the nation, because I don't think that the left has ever, I mean, I don't know if they have actually, because again, as I said, I don't consider myself a very staunch leftist or anything really. I always think of myself as largely progressive. I think where we progressive people made a mistake was that we did not, we left religion to be appropriated by extremists on every side. I think that there was a discomfort with religiosity. And that is a discomfort that is, I'm not saying right or wrong, I'm just saying strategy wise, I completely understand the whole the secular
I mean, Gandhi used the language of religion to make his point about secularism.
A lot. I think that by making it out to seem that everything associated with religion was in some way infradig or bad or problematic, which it may be. But I think that strategically that left the field open for the RSS to appropriate Hinduism, and now we're just having to face a very toxic sort of politicized version of it. And now all of us are suffering. I mean, the thing is that frankly, I don't remember Hanuman being so angry in any storybook I read, in any story my parents told me, in any mythology. Hanuman was always cute, fun. As children, he was our favorite god because he just seemed so awesome. And now I see all these stickers of him like so angry, and I was like, I don't even have a memory of this angry Hanuman. Like even in the Ramayana, what we used to watch as kids and we were obsessed with it, where he jalaos Lanka, he did it laughingly. You know, there was always this mirth associated with him. So I just feel that we allowed religiosity to become toxic. I think that in a country like India, they have for centuries we have had a religiosity that was not toxic.
I mean, I think we have to understand that religion and culture are inextricably intertwined, and for a lot of people to be denied that language is a mistake maybe that the left has made. Certainly at the election ballot, that certainly seems to be what people feel. Let me ask you this. Do you, as a feminist, find your professional choice colliding with your gender beliefs? And I ask you this because on the one hand, cinema is changing. So you do get to do a masturbation scene, then you get massively trolled for it, but you did do it. There was a sort of, there are different kinds of movies being written. But even when different kind of movies are being written, there is a body type, there is a beauty type, there is a Instagram image, there is the good light, there is a good angle, and then you just do get caught in that beauty myth or beauty construct, right? I mean, I'm just wondering, do you, or are you able
Yeah,
to
I mean, it's something no, absolutely. I think it's something I struggled with, and I actually came to realize that, um, you know, there is a certain puritanism in, I feel, in a certain very um, dogmatism, I would say, in too much of a critique of even, frankly, you know, the whole beauty industry, makeup, and so on. I mean, you know, at the end of the day, of course, there's the male gaze. Of course, it's a construct. Of course, there's Photoshop. Of course, we're feeding unrealistic beauty standards. We know it, you know.
Yeah.
But frankly, you know, people like to look good. Vanity is a real sort of thing in all of us.
But it's oppressive. But it's oppressive as well. It's oppressive.
It is oppressive, but I'm saying that that there is a way in which, you know, I'm really a middle of the road person, Barkha. Like, I feel that there's ways to balance things without making it toxic. So, like, for example, I mean, for me, I know that a certain kind of, you know, my mother actually said this to me, because I used to always be ranting in my early years in Bollywood, and she was like, but Swara, like, I mean, why are you always bitching about the industry that you want to be part of? I mean, if those are the rules of the game, why don't you just play the rules by the game until you're at a place where you can change the game? And it made so much sense to me. I was like, hey, is this my battle, that should I wear heels on the red carpet or not? I mean, like, so I just decided, like, you know, and also it's showbiz. So there is no denying that the body and the face are tools. So there is a reason why there is so much focus on it. And I think that there's a way to accept it clinically. Play that game, do what you have to do, but not be obsessed by it and not let it affect you. I mean, I'm sitting here in a dress. I can see right now that I need to tone my arms or do whatever, but what the hell, I'm still wearing the dress. I like it. I feel happy.
Yeah.
And, you know, so I think that there's a way in which we can balance these things.
I mean, I think it's a perennial, lifelong thing to find your free spaces within it, and like,
and like, you know,
it's just that there are girls who are bulimic, there are girls who are anorexic, there are people who self-image, their self-confidence is impacted by that. And as long as that doesn't happen, I'm like, everyone do what they want. I mean,
you know, what I keep doing is this, my way of dealing with this is that I'm constantly putting no makeup pictures with my acne scars showing, my pigmentation, my dark circles. And I'm always laughing about them. Today I've taken a photograph and I'm posting it saying me and my mustache are ready for interviews because I haven't threaded my upper lip. So, you know, I mean, I think there's ways in which we can keep busting.
You can bust it. Yeah, you can bust it when you want to. Yeah, I get that. That makes perfect sense. Now, I have to ask you in this end, I have stayed away from this insider-outsider debate for the most part, but you waded into it yourself. You walked into that one, right?
I did not wade into it. I was invited by Kangana. She gave me an invitation. I took it because she's my colleague.
Now, here's the really slightly paradoxical part, right? There is a self-made woman and she said some things about you. And others, and you reacted. And suddenly this whole conversation is presented as women fighting women. It's all about women. It's only women under scrutiny. And it happens in any argument. The moment women disagree on anything from period leave to nepotism, it's presented as a catfight. I just want to therefore step back from that and just ask you quite simply, how has it been for you as a daughter of middle class professionals from Delhi to make it in the industry?
I mean, it was really hard. Like, I mean, it's taken me 10 years. My first release was in 2010. It's taken me 10, 11 years since I went to Bombay to be in this place. And of course, if you're a star child who's had a big launch, I mean, you see the Jhanvis and the Alias and the Sonakshis and Sonam, who's a dear friend of mine, and all of them, they get to this place where I am at in 1 year or 2 years. So of course, I mean, I don't think anybody denies that star kids have an easier launch and they have easier access. But for me, honestly, Barkha, it's really a question of privilege. And I feel that privilege exists everywhere in the world, in every industry. Tomorrow, if your children want to get into journalism, all your good works will benefit them. And they will have a head
up to a point, right? Up to a point, right? If they're going to be useless journalists, where's that going to take them? Right?
No, but I'm saying that even in
there are many star kids. There are many star kids who failed, and I mean, Kareena Kapoor said this. Kareena said this to me, and she said, "Look, the audience decides, right? It's the same thing. It's the same thing I feel about news TV. People crib non-stop about it, and then they watch it, and they crib about it. And I think Kareena made the point that the audience reserves the right to make or break someone. And they're asserting it, by the way, with a whole lot of cancel culture right now,
Yeah,
disliking
absolutely.
trailers and all of that. So we are seeing the power of the audience there, right?
And I said this during this debate as well, that, if you really care for outsiders, watch our films in theaters. Don't download them off uTorrent. Please buy tickets and watch our films. It's the best way to support outsiders. And that goes for any outsider, whether it's Kangana or me or Rajkumar, Nawaz, Irfan, whoever. So I think that, I think like everything else, Barkha, in public discourse in India today, we're losing nuance. All right. And I think I don't understand, like, beyond the point, it's sensational, it makes good headlines and it's great. But beyond the point, this constant accusatory culture, it isn't helpful. We're not resolving anything. Everyone's getting their backs up against each other. And it's like, really, what is the point of this conversation? I mean, for me, the only thing is that, look, I have my own journey. And just because I don't believe in this kind of you're with us or you're against us kind of idiotic binaries, So I've had my own journey. I respect your journey. You should respect my journey. I think that a lot of our independence and so on, I mean, what is the point if we don't know how to stand up for ourselves? And even if it's another actress or another co-outsider who's doing it, it's unfortunate. But I'm really sorry. I am going to stand up, for myself after a point. It's nobody did it for me. I literally had to fight for every close-up that was given to me. I mean, I have not even had the kind of trajectory that, for example, some of these other girls have had who were launched as heroines. I've literally worked my way up from one scene, two scene, supporting part, then protagonist. So I have a much keener sense than a lot of them about how, like, I literally remember moments when directors looked at the shot and then they saw my performance and they were like, okay, one sec, let's do a close-up on Swara. I've earned every close-up that was given to me in films. So, I mean, for me, nobody needs to give me lessons on the struggle, on the, all that. I mean, I think that we all have our journey and we know best what we went through.
Any regrets? I mean, you're too young to be asked that question, but ever so often along our journey, everyone looks back and says, I could have done that differently. I could have said that differently. I wish I hadn't said that. I wish I hadn't done that.
I mean, I'm definitely, I mean, there's a lot of things that I think back and I was like, wow, I can't believe I did that. But I feel like hindsight. I mean, so many things, I wrote this bizarre, firstly, I have all these open letters. My first open letter was actually in support, was to Anurag Kashyap, who is today, like, I think one of the biggest allies that I have in the industry, just in terms of someone who's a friend, who's a mentor. Right. Not mentor, but someone I can turn to for advice. And I remember my first open letter was against him and Piyush Mishra standing up for someone else. And now I'm just like, why the hell was I wading into that whole debate? Like, I was just young and dumb and emotional. And, you out of JNU, so, like, ready for a fight, and everything is Kranti, that kind of thing. But I feel like, but that was me then. And I was being true to myself at that point. There are some films that, I refused to even audition for, and they went on to become big hits because I didn't like the script. And I didn't realize at that point that the script is only the word. What you see is going to be visual, so there's going to be a lot more. I didn't know any better. But, like, honestly, like, at that point, I did the best I could. I was an outsider. I didn't know any better. I didn't really have people to turn to for advice. So I did the best I could. And, if also, I feel like, we are where we are because of the people we are. If I was not this person, I would not be here talking to you. I would not have done these roles. I would not be in flesh. So I think there's always a trade-off. So for every regret, there's also something you are happy to stand by. And so I really, honestly, I'm quite chill with my choices. And I mean, I wish I could wake up on time. That's my greatest regret in life, is that I can't sleep. So I wish I had, been more disciplined. If I could inculcate discipline as a virtue, that would be lovely. I think we're all nocturnal insomniacs and creatures of the night. Look forward to watching Flesh. Good luck. Thank you. Good luck with that. Good luck. I hope it doesn't come to the contempt of court proceedings. Keep an eye on that. Keep being yourself. I say that to literally every woman. It doesn't matter if I agree, disagree. I think everyone should have the right to be who they want to be, right? Without the mobs coming for you on that. Swara, good luck and thank you. Thanks, Barkha. Thank you. Bye. With pleasure.